There's no doubt that good quality sleep is essential for overall well-being. It's when we're asleep that the body gets time to repair, recharge, and rejuvenate itself, ensuring that all systems are working optimally. The one thing that we tend to forget, though, is how what we eat influences the quality of our sleep. And to tell us about how we can eat our way to a better sleep is Nikki Robertson, our regular nutritionist and NLP practitioner. Hi, Nikki. Lovely to have you in the studio again.
Thank you.
Nikki, sleep, quality sleep. What is considered good quality sleep?
So there's a lot of theories around what constitutes good quality sleep. And people say you should have 8 hours a night, but most of us won't adhere to the general sort of guidelines. And those general guidelines are general, you know, that's what it all means. Yeah. So if you're waking up in the morning and you're feeling refreshed and you can tackle the day, even if you're getting 3 hours of good quality sleep, at least you're getting into deep sleep and you're replenishing and regenerating.
Right.
If you happen to get 8 or 10 hours of sleep and you wake up feeling like you've got a hangover, something's wrong. So what it's saying is you're not getting into deep enough sleep for repair to happen, for digestion to happen, for brain health, for growth, for your immune system.
Right.
So we've got to look at the individual and what is stopping you from getting there, from getting rested.
Right.
Rest and sleep and that kind of restoration is probably, it underpins everything. So before we even start looking at how to lose weight or how to put on weight or how to optimize your performance as an athlete, if you're not getting enough rest, nothing's going to work.
And it's really about quality versus quantity, as you say.
Absolutely, and that's with everything.
Yeah.
It's the quality and how deeply you can go into that restorative state rather than volume. And that goes for just about every health paradigm.
How much truth is there, and it's before we get into the nitty-gritty of it, how much truth is there to the saying or the information that's out there that a 3-hour cycle is what you should be aiming for? So whether it's 3 or 6 or 9, ultimately you need to have that time to go from light sleep to deep sleep and then come back up, and then you go back through the same cycle again.
And that is how the brain works. So we start off with light sleep, we go into deep sleep, which is where the brain actually puts you into a semi-state of paralysis.
Right.
You then go into what they call rapid eye movement, which is your dream state, but you don't stay there long. It feels like you've been dreaming the whole night, but it's around 15 to 20 minutes at most. So you will probably get out of an 8-hour, if you're sleeping well, about 5 to 6 hours of light sleep, about 2.5 hours of deep sleep, and around half an hour to an hour maximum of REM sleep, which is divided up through the night. And most of that is towards the end when you wake up. That is normal, and that is restorative, and that is a normal sleep cycle. The reason for that is because our brains can't go into paralysis the whole night in case there's a predator outside the cave. So that's how we've been wired since the beginning of time, is to get the restoration and then come up into semi-consciousness so we can be aware of the surroundings. If something goes wrong, we can wake up. So in that very deep state, you probably won't wake up. And this is where sleepwalking happens and all sorts of things happen, where that paralysis, so just it's a strange term, switches off and people act out their dreams, which is a whole other subject.
Yeah, it's fascinating too.
Absolutely fascinating.
What are some of the things, Nikki, that can cause disturbed sleep or not good sleep?
All right, so one of your biggest reasons for, say, waking up at 2 o'clock in the morning is irregular stress levels. So when your cortisol, which is needed to wake you up, so it's designed specifically to wake you up when the sun rises, switches on too early, it's a sign that your cortisol is out of regulation. So it could be too high, it could be too low, but it's saying that you're not getting enough balance with your stress, relaxation. So for waking up too early, we've got to look at possibly exercising, not late in the day, early on in the morning, just changing the timing of how the body manages cortisol.
So it's really about when you have cortisol in your system and how your body's processed it and when it's out.
Is it not following its natural rhythms? And we do that with a saliva test. We want to see that cortisol is peaking when it should and dropping when it should, and then we should get around that waking up at 2 o'clock in the morning. It's fine to wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning, but can we go back to sleep within 20 minutes? That's the trick. So if you can do that, that's okay. If you're awake till 4 o'clock in the morning, there's a problem. So we've got to fix that.
And it is something that you find, I mean, in my life, I find it sometimes, if it's a stressful situation, you wake up and your mind is going, and that would be because there's too much cortisol, I imagine.
Yes, so we ruminate. So what happens is we lie back, the eyes roll back into the visual cortex of the brain. This is an NLP thing, and we switch on the video.
Okay.
So the scenarios start playing out, the auditory starts playing out. We start living through, because there's nothing else to do, it's dark.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
the movie starts and the scenario planning starts. So there are techniques to put that in a box and put it aside.
Okay.
But there's many ways to deal with that. But being aware of it is the first step.
Start. Okay. What are some of the foods that have a definite impact on good versus bad sleep, and how do we manage that?
Okay, so one of these nutritional myths is that we shouldn't eat carbs at night if we want to lose weight. And it's probably the worst thing you can do for good sleep, because your brain needs glycogen, which comes from carbohydrates, in order to fall asleep, in order to repair.
Okay.
So when we start cutting out carbs, what happens is the brain doesn't switch into that restful state, okay? We don't get enough sleep, and when we are tired, we crave sugar. So we wake up in the morning and dive into the caffeine and into the sugar, which just pushes up adrenals, and it pushes up your insulin levels. Then what happens through the day is we don't eat correctly, and at night cutting carbs again, and you're back into that cycle.
Okay.
So it's one of the biggest problems.
Yeah.
When people think of carbs, we think of bread and pasta.
Yes, the refined stuff.
And this is not what we're talking about. We're talking about whole foods. We're talking about vegetable-based carbohydrates, like your sweet potatoes and even white rice, which is really good for your stomach, as opposed to, say, brown rice, which doesn't agree with a lot of people. But from a GI point of view, it actually makes no difference. So we need, again, to not cut out anything, but we've got to be clever about it. So your whole food vegetable carbohydrates are brilliant, especially with children. You know, staying away from the pastas and the crumbed products and things like that is really, really important, and to get them onto things like cauliflower noodles and vegetable wraps, which contain enough glycogen, enough carbohydrate value to induce good sleep. So that's crucial.
It really is the balance of a balanced diet that you're talking about.
It's not to leave out anything, but to be clever about it. And when you get that balance right, you don't wake up tired, you don't have cravings. You know, there's this need for sugar, and these cravings are often regarded as lack of self-control. It's got nothing to do with self-control. It's got everything to do with survival. Your brain is simply looking for something to stay awake. And it's out of our control. But when we start having everything we need in a diet, the cravings and the tiredness goes because the brain has what it needs. It's logic. But we try and get complicated, and it's really not that complicated.
So what are things that should be avoided close to bedtime to eliminate the impact on sleep? All right,
so anything that stimulates the brain, caffeine, sugar, alcohol is possibly one of the worst things you can have at night if you're looking to sleep. And the sugar content as well is a big problem.
What is a sort of a safe, if I can call it a safe time, a good time before bed to be eating? Is there a time too close to bed to be eating in general, or how does that impact?
Look, I really believe we should be having our biggest meal at lunchtime. It's not always realistic for most people because of work and because we like to eat with family. So I'd say 2 to 3 hours before bedtime. Ideally, and if you can't manage that, make it very light, so soups and very digestible foods at night. And if you do battle, keep it vegetable. You know, stay away from the red meat if you're the kind of person who battles to digest red meat.
And then things like the old-fashioned warm milk before bed. I mean, what sort of impact does that have, and why does that work? Does it work? I mean,
it does work for some people, and especially if you're not lactose sensitive, it works very, very well. But there's good quality protein and good quality carbohydrates in your milk, and it's soothing and relaxing. And I think more than anything, it's an anchored state. So it's a ritual, and our rituals before bed are really important. So whether it's a herbal tea, like a chamomile tea, that as long as we are going into that relaxed state and it's warm and it's soothing, that already gives the message to the brain to calm down.
So it generally calms the body, mind, and soul in a way.
I think it's more of a psychosomatic reaction, but whatever works, you know.
But now, what about magnesium? A lot of people refer to taking magnesium before bed. Is that a good idea?
Yes. Magnesium, to me, is one of the most fundamental minerals out there. It is so helpful on so many levels. Also very helpful for restless legs, which is a big problem at night. And that's, magnesium, potassium, sodium are all electrolytes. And so many of us suffer from dehydration.
Yes, absolutely.
And then we get all these little nerve twitches and these restless feelings. So magnesium and cramps at night are a massive
huge
issue.
Thing. Yeah, waking up with a cramp is never a fun exercise.
Terrible. And that's a magnesium deficiency as well.
Okay.
So magnesium's hugely, I mean, I couldn't live without magnesium. It's one of those things that I've always got. So there's so many factors to it. And again, it's individual. We've got to figure out, is it stress?
Does it work for you? Yeah.
Is it lack of carbs? Is it too much stimulation?
Yeah. Okay.
Is it the wrong food? So there's never a one story to anybody. We've got to unpick all these little factors.
Got to know yourself and your life and
yes,
how it works.
Yeah. But if you can take all of these ideas and go, well, that's me and that's not me, and let's try this, you'll probably find a good solution.
Wonderful.
To falling asleep.
Super. Thank you so much, Nikki. Great to have you in the studio
Thank
again.
you.
And hopefully tonight we all get a good night's sleep.
Hope so.
Wonderful. Thank you.